Giannis Antetokounmpo has played 12 seasons in Milwaukee, in which he's learned what it's like to be at the top of the league, but also to hit rock bottom. And today, I'm going to rank every one of those seasons to see which one has been the best for Bucks fans. But I'm going to do it with a very specific criteria, not only ranking how good the Bucks were, but how it felt to experience that season as a fan. The team being good obviously helps the fan experience, but we also have other things to account, like expectations, memorable moments, or just some exciting games. That said, let's go with it. Number 12, 2013-2014. Not surprising, I guess. Tanking years are always tough, and every fan who thinks the Bucks have to blow it up now should rewatch this season and experience one loss after another. It was ugly to watch, and it probably tuned a lot of fans out of the team. Maybe in retrospective it has the charm of being the first season for both Giannis and Middleton in Milwaukee, but at the time you would have never thought that was a bit due in the making, so there was nothing to really enjoy.
Jammed down by the alphabet!
Number 11. 2024-2025. Maybe this is recency bias, or whatever the opposite of bias is, I guess, but this season was just insufferable to me. The team started feeling depressing with that 2-8 record, and it didn't seem to make any progress. Every time they had a good game, they followed it up with some pathetic loss, so it was just a rough experience from beginning to end. There were a few good moments, like the comeback win against Minnesota, or that stretch after the All-Star where they seemed to be figuring it out, but the season ended in a terrible way that made me not want to watch a Bucks basketball game ever again for weeks, so I guess that sums it up.
4 seconds, Halliburton for the lead!
Number 10, 2015-2016. This season has a few things going for it, mainly that win against Golden State to cut their winning streak, and the fact that we could actually see Giannis growing into an NBA star. But it was such a letdown after a promising 14-15 season. The Bucks got out of the playoff run pretty quickly, and honestly this feels like the most forgettable season of the years to me. I don't remember a lot of things that happened that year, and that's probably for the better since there weren't a lot of moments to enjoy.
Paid off, but there's the Mike LaFlesh! Michael Carter-Williams!
Number 9, 2023-2024. Not nearly as ugly as 24-25, but still super frustrating. The Bucks started with a great record, but it was so depressing to see how they couldn't stop anybody on defense. And the schedule up until that point felt so easy that I didn't even enjoy those wins that much. And then we got to Doc Rivers, who made me learn that a coach can actually hurt my love for basketball. I know some fans think the Giannis and Dame injuries prevent the Bucks from having a long playoff run, but I don't really feel like that because I never saw a contender in them. Yet they might have beat the Pacers and even the Knicks since they were pretty hurt too, but I don't think I was ever optimistic about these playoffs, which is arguably more depressing and made me rank this season so low.
Middleton got a look for 3, got it! Oh my! A miracle in Indianapolis!
Number 8, 2022-2023. This season is weird because it was actually pretty fun to experience. There was a lot of exciting wins here and there, the team performed even when Giannis was missing sometimes, and it felt like the Bucks were getting ready for another championship run. But I cannot think about any of that because of the playoffs. This was by far the most frustrating postseason I've ever experienced, and I don't even want to talk about it if I'm being honest. If you were there, you know why, and if you weren't, believe me, you don't wanna know. Number 7, 2017-2018. I think some people might have this season higher because of that playoff series against Boston. The Bucks got the Celtics to Game 7 as underdogs and had some amazing clutch moments like the Giannis game winner in Game 4 or the Middleton buzzer beater in Game 1. In fact, that series was more impressive than I gave it credit for at the time, since I thought the only reason the Bucks were putting up a fight was the fact that Hayward and Irving were injured and the Celtics weren't really all that competitive without them, which ended up not being true since they were able to take the LeBron-led Cavaliers to 7 games. However, the regular season didn't do it for me. I felt like the team didn't make any progress after the great 16-17 season, and the front office felt the same thing when they decided to fire Jason Kidd. I don't know, I felt a bit disappointed and thought this was just a somewhat better version of 15-16, with the team not really capitalizing the glimpses of growth we have seen in the previous season and showing its ceiling wasn't all that high, which, as I learned later, wasn't really the case.
Inside the mid-range. Oh! Sorry, Hubie. No.
Number 6. 2014-2015. This Bucks team felt so different. The roster wasn't really very talented since Giannis and Middleton were still finding their path as players and they had Brandon Knight leading the offense, but the roster was tough. They liked winning ugly and they had a super defensive-minded style, which I know it's not a lot of people's favorite, but I really enjoy watching it. It was also a season of memorable wins, like that 3 overtime game in Brooklyn or the few buzzer beaters they had, including one in an elimination game that felt amazing at the time because it was the first playoff win in 5 years. That playoffs were also kind of enjoyable, with that Game 5 win in Chicago as the cherry on top, although they were sort of ruined by how bad they lost Game 6. Overall, I think we can consider that team like some kind of grit and grind Bucks, which led to some stressful wins that are pretty memorable for me and gave us the first playoff experience for Giannis.
They trail in the series 2 games to none. Middleton the pull-up. It's good!
Number 5. 2019-2020. You'd think playoffs would ruin this season for me as they did with 22-23, and they kind of did, but I have to give credit where it's due. The Bucks had one of the most dominant stretches in basketball history with their 18-game winning streak. Giannis got his second MVP, and overall it felt so good to see the team being that unstoppable. They were close to a 70-win pace, and who knows what would have happened without COVID, right? But then we got to the bubble, where the series against the Heat was just a pain to experience.
ACP, he puts up the 3. Got it! Another one! Oh!
Number 4. 2021-2022. I know a lot of people love this one, and the fact that there are still a few others above it doesn't mean I don't. The team was a bit inconsistent through the regular season, but that was easier to swallow coming from a championship run, so we could just enjoy the great wins like the Christmas game against Boston, the comeback against the Heat and so. And even though the playoffs ended in a tough way, I still have a lot of great memories from that Celtic series. I'm a sucker for heroic losses, so this will forever be one of my favorite series. Watching Giannis emptying the tank without his number 2 option and against the best team in the East was such an experience. His Game 1 was a masterpiece, the end of Game 3 still gives me chills, and that Game 5 is in my top 5 games ever for sure. I think if the Bucks have ended up winning, this series could honestly be my favorite ever, even over the ones in the championship run, just because of how special every game felt. But we all know how that ended.
Williams, stout defense, threw it to himself. Oh! He's eviscerating the Celtic.
Number 3. 2018-2019. This was the beginning of a new era for the Milwaukee Bucks, so of course it had to be this high. I don't know you, but for many years I never thought I'd see the Bucks being as good as they were that year. It was the moment when we all learned we could actually have championship expectations, when we watched Giannis become an MVP caliber player, when we experienced what it was to be winning games on a daily basis. It just had all the pros of a contending year, with the excitement and the hype hopes that come with it, without the cons like the fear of not meeting the expectation or the team potentially blowing up if things didn't land. The only thing against this season are the playoffs, not because the Bucks end up losing, but because not even the wins were truly that epic when you think about it. Detroit was just a pushover, and Boston wasn't really as thought as we thought it would. I don't really have a lot of specific memories from that series, like clutch plays or things like that. However, that's something that didn't bother me at the time because I had never seen the Bucks win a playoff series, so I was just thriving. At least until Kawhi Leonard came up.
Bucks start with 9 on the shot clock. Giannis!
Number 2. 2016-2017. If the 15-16 season was a letdown after a promising season, this was the year where the Bucks went back on track, and they did in great fashion. I know a 42-40 record doesn't look that impressive, but the way the team got together in the last stretch of the regular season after being with just 22 wins and 30 losses was quite exciting at the time. There was a lot of super tough wins that I remember to this day, like the one in Boston with Malcolm Brogdon going crazy in the last quarter to beat the first seed Celtics, and of course there was the playoff series against the Raptors. I said before that I'm a sucker for heroic losses, and I think this is the moment that made me be that way. That Game 6, when the Bucks came down from a 25-point deficit while facing elimination, is one of my canonic events as a basketball fan. The Middleton 3-1 and the Jason Terry 3 live rent-free in my mind forever, and even though they end up losing, it's still one of my favorite Bucks playoff games ever just because of how emotional it was.
On top, Terry for the lead.
Number 1. 2020-2021. Of course, like, what can I even say at this point? You all knew this was going to be number 1, this is your number 1, and I don't think my experience about it is different than yours, so I don't have a lot to talk about the championship year. I say though, we Bucks fans are pretty lucky, because I think we got one of the most epic rings of the century, since that championship run was full of historic moments. I guess every fan thinks that about the rings their team won, since there are probably a lot of moments that I've forgotten about that a specific fan base remember with passion, but I can't stop thinking about the amount of iconic plays of that run, that started with a game winner in Game 1 and ended with a 50-piece. If you make a Giannis top 5 carry plays, you'd probably have the block in Game 4 and the alley-oop in Game 5 in there. And I don't think there's a lot of NBA stars that can really say that 2 of their best 5 plays ever happened in the finals. It was just something special that I'm sure we'll remember forever.
The emotions come pouring out. One of the greatest nights in Milwaukee sports history ends in a coronation